Hey, what's up guys? Mr. Chris here with Infotainment.com. We're here with our 2016 Ram 1500 truck. We got a lot of requests for this video. We're going to be adding steering wheel controls to our factory steering wheel. This upgrade can work with any radio, any factory radio that you have. Doing this upgrade will enable you to have steering wheel controls on your steering wheel. So let's get into the install. So for this upgrade, we do have to remove the steering wheel, and reason being is we have to add this piece on the back of the steering wheel, this shroud, because it has our locations for our buttons to pop in, where your factory piece does not have that. So before we remove the steering wheel, we have to remove the airbag. So before we remove the airbag, we're going to remove the battery terminal so we don't have any kind of mishaps with our airbag. So go ahead, grab yourself a 10mm socket and pull your terminals off. I'll lean that out of the way and I'll pull both off. All right, now we can move inside the truck. All right, since we got our battery disconnected, we can come up underneath the steering wheel here. I got it adjusted all the way up just so it gives me a little bit more room. And on either side of the steering wheel here, you have two openings going up here. And this is for a T20 Torx that's holding these two plastic covers on. So it's pretty deep in there, so I'm using an extension. As you can see, that fits just about perfect. Right when you pull that T20 out, you're gonna wanna do that on the other side. And then in the center down here, you have another T20 that this is actually not gonna work for. So for this T20 that's way under here, you're gonna wanna get something super skinny. If you have a really long, skinny T20, that would work. I don't, but I do have one that's on a screwdriver handle, so this will work for me. All right, and that's all we need to remove for now. Set that aside. We can adjust our wheel back down. And now this piece should pop off here. There we go. That's basically all you need to remove from your steering wheel to get the airbag cover off. Now, on these trucks, the airbag cover is held in with 3 clips that are behind the airbag. It's kind of hard to see, but basically you're gonna have to pop the clip up and put some outwards pressure on that airbag so it gets separated from where the clip mounts onto. And then you're gonna wanna do that 3 times. It's kind of a, you know, it's a little cumbersome, but as you're doing it, you're gonna have to spin the wheel to gain access to all the clips that are back there. So we'll get a camera back here. We'll try and show you what I'm doing in there. With that cap removed, what you're gonna wanna grab, or what I grabbed, is a bunch of panel tools, these little plastic things. You can kind of use anything as a wedge, but basically what I'm gonna use these for is once I get one of the clips removed from the airbag, I'm gonna kind of wedge it in between there so it doesn't re-clip itself, because once you get a clip off, you'll see why you don't wanna accidentally have it re-clipped on. Also a series of maybe a pick, flathead screwdrivers, something small, panel tools, anything kind of metal rigid so you can pull the clip up. They're fairly strong metal loop type clips that are back here. And lastly, what I'm using is my cell phone. This is probably, I'm not going to say the only way, but in my opinion, probably the best way to do this is setting your cell phone up right on your gauge cluster here with the selfie camera on, using it as a mirror. If you have a zoom feature on that, that would be even better. I don't, but just being able to see what I'm doing is going to be very beneficial. So I'm going to get that view recorded for you guys as well, so you'll see kind of what I'm doing in there. But let me get this going here. And let's see if I can get these clips removed. There, just like that. You're gonna wanna lift that high enough so the airbag will pop out, just like that. Then I will get this, kind of wedge that in there so it doesn't move. So now that I have one unclipped, to access the others, you gotta turn the wheel until you see that clip exposed there. Let me try this one. All right, there's two. And if you have patience, that'll help you out here. There we go. Spin this around and we'll get that last one right on the bottom there. There we go. Oh, all right. All right, now on the back side of your airbag, you have a black and a yellow connector, and these just have squeeze tabs on either side. To squeeze it, pull straight out. You can't get it wrong, they're color coded, so you're not gonna screw that up. Right on the bottom here, you have a little Christmas tree holding that wire on. Just pop that off and you'll remove your airbag. We'll set that aside because we won't need that anymore. All right, now that we got our airbag out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and spin the steering wheel back over so it's in the right direction. And I'm gonna get it centered as straight as I can. And that looks pretty good right there. And the reason being is when we remove the steering wheel, we just want to put the steering wheel back on as straight as possible, so we don't mess with the wheels alignment, you know, so when you're driving down the road, it's not tilted one way or the other. From here, we can unplug the wire that's connecting to our steering wheel, or connecting our steering wheel, and you're gonna have this airbag wire and this connector removed. Now all we have to do is take off the 13mm bolt that's holding our steering wheel on, and it's pretty tight, so I'm gonna use an impact on here. Set that aside. All right, and now the steering wheel is just kind of pressure fit. You can see it doesn't pop off freely with the splines that are in here. So it's there's a whole bunch of grooves on both sides of this steering wheel that kind of keep it in place and centered. So sometimes you can get a rubber mallet and pop it off. I'm gonna see if I can just tap it off. All right, and just like that, that'll pop free. When you're pulling your steering wheel off, make sure that these clear the opening inside the steering wheel, because you don't want to pull the steering wheel off, catch these wires, and then pull your clock spring off. So you just want to kind of make sure that that stays intact and in place. But yep, this is all we need. Now we can work on this on the bench. All right, so coming over to our bench, we have our steering wheel here. What you're gonna need is a T25 and a Phillips to pull these plastics off. So you have two on the back side. Right there. And spin this over. And on this side, you got two more T25s and two Phillips right at the bottom here. We'll take those out. All right, sorry, I lied. There's actually two more right on the bottom of the back side of the steering wheel here. Those are also Phillips. All right, now we should be able to separate our top and bottom steering wheel plastics here. And angling it up, you can see inside here we have our connector, our harness that's going to the back of the front of the steering wheel controls on the front side of the steering wheel. We'll disconnect that. kind of hard to see in there, but on the back side of that steering wheel, you're just gonna have to kind of wedge your finger in there and press down this clip, and then you can pop this off of the back side of the steering wheel, controls on that side. And then you have another one on the other side, similar type of connector, but it's a very small harness. You pull that off and you can set that whole top portion aside. In here on the bottom side of your steering wheel, you have this yellow wire here. This is for your horn buttons, but you have horn switches at the 4 corners on here. You're gonna wanna pop that wiring harness up. That'll expose this connector, and this is the connector that's run into this harness here. It's attached to the metal frame of your steering wheel. So if you unpop or if you remove this connector here, that'll free the plastic from the back side. All right. And basically what you're doing is you're separating this plastic. There's that little square notch in there. You're separating that, or you're giving it some space so that protruding little knob on there can pop free. All right, you should be able to pull your steering wheel free. Keep in mind there's little plastic retainers here that kind of hold on to your wires. You can just pop your wires free and separate the back plastic. So if you come this far following along, this is how your steering wheel should look. You should have this harness still attached to your steering wheel. We can set that aside, and this is what we wanted. So basically you can see the difference here. You have spots for the new steering wheel controls, the audio controls, whereas the old one you do not. So we'll set that aside. We'll grab our new cover that's included with our kit, as well as the wiring harness that's also included with our kit, and the new steering wheel controls. These are side specific, so by looking at them on the back side of the switch, right here you have this kind of like a half moon cutout, this half circle on this top edge, and it's nowhere else. This is notched out to fit into the steering wheel housing here. So when you set it in there, it'll snap in, and that protruding plastic on your steering wheel piece will fit right into that kind of half moon, or that circle that's cut onto the steering wheel controls. If you tried to pop this or the wrong side in, the circle that's cut into this one wouldn't match up. No matter which way you put it, you wouldn't be able to get this to pop in there forcibly. You know, you could forcibly do it, but if you're just pushing this back in, it'll fight you a little bit. That's how you'll know that you have the wrong side. And we'll do it again for this side. Pop that into place. All right, now once you got your little steering wheel controls popped in, you can grab your main harness, and the easiest way to do this is grab your old steering wheel piece and just kind of look and see where or how that harness was ran. We're just gonna basically copy this layout here to get it into that same orientation. So as you can see, that big harness here comes out right around here. So I'll just start pushing it in there. All right, and you can see this side of the harness has only one. On your old steering wheel, it has two now. So that second one is gonna be for your new steering wheel control. Just like that. Push this down into there. And then this main connector here, this large white plug, you want to make sure it's right around the center of the top of the steering wheel, because that's where it's going to plug back into when we put it all back together. All right, and that second smaller wire on the left side of the wheel, same like the other side. That is for our newly installed steering wheel controls. And then this really long one is gonna come down. Let's see if I can get it this way. It's gonna come down for our horn switches, which were right at the bottom down here. And then this last horn switch harness here, we just wanna make sure it kind of ends up in this area. What we'll do is plug this back in, and then we'll push it down into these clips here. What you wanna make sure is when you're running your harness around here, you see these holes here on either side. That's where your screws are going through. So you definitely wanna avoid having your harness go over that hole, because when you put it all back together and put your screw in there, you don't want the screw to cut or pinch any of these wires. All right, so with our harness in place, we can grab our wheel. And put our cover back on the back. Make sure nothing is in the way here. Well, once it's kind of situated in its place, you can flip it back over and look on the back here, and you can see your screws or your screw holes exposed. So if you had a wire in between there, you would definitely see the wire blocking that screw hole. If you did have that, you want to pull this back off and make sure those wires are moved out of the way before you put your screws in here. All right, and from here, we'll go ahead and put our Torx back in. Flipping the steering wheel back over, you can see all of our horn wires here aren't pushed back into the little clips that they used to be in, so we'll slide those back in there. From here, we can go ahead and plug our horn connector back in. I'll slide it into its little connector holder thing here, and then I'll push the wires right back over it. All right, so now we can grab our top cover here with the top side steering wheel controls, and I'll go ahead and plug this big harness back in. It's gonna be kind of hard to see, but basically you can't get it wrong. It'll only go in one way. All right, that one's in, and we'll snap the left side back together as well. All right. Now, you should be able to squeeze everything back together. It should kind of snap together like that. All right, and now we can put the 4 screws back in up top here. That's the 2 Torx up here, the 2 Phillips at the bottom. Then we'll flip it over and we'll get the last 2 Phillips on the back side of here. All right, we're good. We'll go and reinstall this into the Ram. All right, we'll feed our airbag wires back through the opening here. Keep in mind this hole in your steering wheel, in this metal frame of your steering wheel, is supposed to line up with this alignment pin on this clock spring. So if your clock spring is off a little bit and you're trying to push the steering wheel on, that is gonna be preventing you. It's gonna be, you know, hitting the sides here. So just make sure that you line that alignment pin on here with this hole in your steering wheel. when you put the steering wheel back on, I'm gonna make sure it's pretty much straight, just like when you pulled it off. And we can grab our 13 mil that we pulled off earlier, and we'll put that back on. All right, now that we got our steering wheel bolt tightened down, we'll plug our main harness back in. Now all that's left is for us to put the steering wheel back down, or the airbag back on. And we removed this upside down so it was easier for you to see. But basically, we're just gonna plug those back in, and then don't forget to push your little Christmas tree back into that hole up there. All right, now before I go ahead and push this back in to those plastic clips in there, I'm gonna put the negative and positive battery terminals back on, and I'm gonna make sure that everything works. Because once you pop this back on, if you hook your battery up and something doesn't work and you gotta pop this back off, it's just gonna be another little headache that you have to go through to check all your connections. So let's go reinstall the battery terminals and we'll check our work. All right, now we can jump in the truck and test out our work. All right, now that we tested everything and everything works like it should, we'll pop our airbag back on. Oh, there you go. Watch your fingers so they don't get pinched around here. And now we can go ahead and put our steering wheel cover back on. Grab the top piece here. Clip it back on, both sides. All right, we'll attach our two Torx, these long black ones on the sides of the steering wheel. All right, we'll do our last one, which was in the middle down here. All right, now she's all set. Readjust this back down, and we have our steering wheel controls completed. All right, and just like that, you got your steering wheel controls installed. If you're kind of a beginner, I know it seems kind of intimidating because you're dealing with the airbag, but just make sure to undo your positive and negative battery terminals just to be on the safe side. Take your time, and it still should probably only take you about an hour start to finish. But yeah, for more installs like this, come back to infotainment.com.